Congress was right to vote to fight terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. I re-enlisted after 9/11 because I don't want my sons to see what I saw. I want them to be free and safe. I know what I lost. I also know that if we pull out now, everything I've given and sacrificed will mean nothing. They attacked us, and they will again. They won't stop in Iraq. We are winning on the ground and making real progress. It's no time to quit. It's no time for politics.
It's no time for politics, and yet it's political ads that they are going to use to sell the war. Paul Rieckhoff yesterday was on Hardball when we first saw that ad last night, played by Mike Barnacle, with Ari Fleischer and his group Freedom's Watch, who apparently does not know what time it is. And Paul Rieckhoff was the go-to guy because he represents Iraq veterans and Afghan veterans of America, not for or against anything. And he was just appalled that Ari Fleischer couldn't name the soldier who was featured in that ad. We learned his name today, and I thought, let's talk to Paul and find out just exactly what he thinks about this ad campaign to sell a war. So welcome back, Paul. It's good to talk to you after a really long time.
Great to be with you, Randy. Really appreciate it.
I am so proud of you for being so available to the news media to tell the truth each and every time they need to be told the truth from the veterans' point of view. And, you know, I know you're not political, and I know that one time you asked me to, you know, go and speak to your group, and everybody was kind of gritting their teeth because my politics are on my sleeve. So just to clear this all up, Paul, I don't even know if Paul's a Democrat. I have no idea if he's a Republican. I couldn't care less. All I know is he represents Iraq and Afghanistan veterans of America, which is the largest organization, the only organization for veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yesterday you saw what is a $15 million ad campaign to sell this war. What are your thoughts?
It really disgusts me, Randy. I mean, this is a huge ad buy running in 20 states with an incredibly political message, essentially promoting the surge and a very pro-war, pro-White House stance. And at the very top of it, you know, the cornerstone of this ad is a soldier named John Kreisel, who is a double amputee, and it's really exploitive. Ari Fleischer couldn't even tell Hardball this guy's name when he was on with Mike Barnacle, and I think it's just another sign of how so many people in the political world are using troops to push a political agenda. It's really disgusting in many ways.
Well, you know, I got the feeling from Ari Fleischer that supporting the troops doesn't mean actually getting to know them.
Yeah. Well, it came on the back of the VFW speech that the president gave this week. And every year he goes to the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, which is, you know, the largest collection of veterans in America, and he uses them as a giant photo op. He uses them as wallpaper for another case for the war. And he doesn't talk about the issues that are really facing veterans. And that was one of my biggest criticisms of this and a lot of the dialogue coming out of the White House. Whatever happened to Walter Reed? The Dole-Shalala report came out, 6 easy steps to be implemented, waiting on the president's desk, and it's gathering dust. He didn't even mention it in front of the largest collection of veterans in America yesterday, and I think that was disgusting too.
Well, you know, that is a very simple report, the Dole-Shalala report, that got no attention really in the media except from a few people like you, and I mentioned it a few times. But it is the easiest to read report. It's only 29 pages. It's called Serve, Support, and Simplify. And it's got 6 overall recommendations that were broken down into 35 specific action steps, only 6 of which need congressional legislation. Everything else could have been done by the president himself. It's funny, but, you know, he wants to be this unitary executive. He wants to say that he doesn't need Congress. And here is a perfect example of being served the ability to do whatever he wants without going to Congress on the behalf of veterans, and he chooses not to do it. And I remember the day after the report was issued, Tony Snow told the reporters in that press briefing room that the president, quote, is not going to be making recommendations. He's not going to be issuing calls for action.
Yeah.
So how dare he use our troops as political props again? I mean, it's amazing to me that he doesn't know the name of any soldier who's under the rank of colonel, you know?
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, the Dole-Shalala report was a giant layup for him.
Yeah.
I mean, when his approval rating is plummeting, he could have stood up and said, wow, thank you, Dole, thank you, Shalala.
Yes.
You gave me the instructions. I'm taking immediate action. And he didn't. He blew him off. And now the Dole Shalala report is collecting dust on a shelf somewhere, just like we saw with the Iraq Study Group report, and just like we saw with the 9/11 Commission. So anytime there's been a bipartisan group that's really researched a very pressing issue and given clear recommendations for implementation, the president's blown them off. And unfortunately, Walter Reed and our nation's veterans, 1.7 million of them that have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, are suffering exactly the same fate. And I'm glad you're paying attention to it, because most of the mainstream news media, quite frankly, hasn't been.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It really is, because, you can't sit here and start screaming at me about support the troops because you've got a magnet on your car, when obviously we found out about Walter Reed. It was absolutely gross. I think every American looked at it and said, oh my God, you have to be kidding me. The Vietnam veterans called me up and said, Randy, this has been going on forever. Forever. This is nothing new. The last veterans to really get care, to really have a GI Bill, were the World War II veterans. The Korean War veterans are getting older, but they called too. The Vietnam veterans were like, what is your outrage, Randy? I mean, this has been going on for us. Didn't you see, born on the 4th of July, nothing's changed. And then all of a sudden, these easy-to-implement recommendations come. People study it. And the president wants to study it some more instead of taking immediate action to help guys who are coming back with physical and mental injuries. When is this country going to say, we don't support the troops? You know what? That is our shame as a country. We don't support them. And the Republicans seem to want to use all of the troops as Swift boat ads. The only use for the administration for any of our veterans is to put them in an ad attacking Democrats. It's ridiculous.
No, it is. I mean, and one of those recommendations, number 6, support Walter Reed until closure.
Because 2011, Walter Reed is staying open for at least another 4 or 5 years.
Exactly. Yeah. How easy is that recommendation? I mean, it's not a lot of money. We lose more money than that in Iraq in probably 20 minutes. And we could keep Walter Reed functioning. We could keep it well-funded. But again, right now it's sitting on a shelf gathering dust. And I think a great way to show how this administration has attacked the troops is look at this op-ed that came out in the New York Times this weekend by 8 soldiers from the 82nd Airborne, criticizing the surge and really offering a ground truth perspective about what's happening. That's gotten brushed away. It's gotten next to no mainstream media coverage also. And prior to that, this country was really basing their analysis of the surge on an 8-day visit that was sugar-coated by the Pentagon by these 2 policy wonks at Brookings. So we finally hear from the troops. They tell you what they're thinking about the complexity and the danger of what's happening on the ground, and it really bothers me that not a lot of people are paying attention to it.
Well, I know that people read the piece in the New York Times. It's The War as I See It, or The War as I Saw It. And it was written by guys on the ground saying it's lost. I talked to veterans today, and one guy called me up and said that he was there 3 tours he did. And I said to him, I usually don't ask veterans what it's really like because a lot of them don't like talking about it. I remember my dad did not. I know a lot of Vietnam veterans that would prefer not to talk about it. But I asked the kid, I said to him, so what's it really like? And all he would say was, it's hot and it's lost. That's what they would say. And he's not even political. He just wants kids to be aware of what the recruiters are saying as opposed to what the reality is. And so he's organizing, truth to recruiters, things in L.A. But, I mean, honestly, these vets have taken no side. They're not Democrats. They're not Republicans for the most part. They're just patriots who decided they saw something hideous on 9/11, and they wanted to go. I know I wanted to go. But to end up in Iraq and then be treated this way when they come back, and that is as a political, I love the expression political chew toy. That was just so illustrative of what they're being put through. I mean, they're being, grabbed onto by the Bush administration only if they'll serve a political endgame.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're completely ignored.
No, and the greatest example of this is going to be General Petraeus. He's going to be a tragic figure when they roll him out, and we're hearing it may actually be on September 11th that he delivers his report on Capitol Hill about the surge. And in many ways, he's being set up to be a fall guy, and I mentioned this on television yesterday. It reminded me of when they rolled Colin Powell out to the UN to make the case for weapons of mass destruction. They know that military people carry tremendous credibility and that they have experience and that they're trusted by the American public. And I think Petraeus is another example of unfortunately, a troop that's being used on a much higher level for political purposes.